Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good to be back again to continue a subject we started last time, and that was to do with expecting the unexpected. And that was looking at it from the perspective that sometimes there's things that surprise us that shouldn't be a surprise if we're thinking the way God does, but sometimes if we're not thinking that way and we're thinking from an earthly perspective, it may come as a surprise to us. So last time we were looking at the mercy that was demonstrated and how it was a little bit unexpected that an enemy was showing mercy to another enemy in the context of the Good Samaritan. This morning, I'd like us to consider something beginning with M as well, called meekness. Meekness. And what is, in some respects, unexpected from what the earth might perceive for us to demonstrate meekness. So, we know very well already that people throw rocks at things that shine. And sometimes, unfortunately, that is literal too. It's very sad to see that throughout history there has been stonings. Even we read about it in Acts there of Stephen and other people who have been stoned for their faith. People throw rocks at things that shine. So it shouldn't surprise us then that sometimes doing the right thing has hurtful things that come with that. And so let's turn first of all together to 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 12. 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 12 says, "Dear friends, do not be surprised at the painful trial you are suffering, as though something strange were happening to you." I'll read that again. "Dear friends, do not be surprised at the painful trial you are suffering, as though something strange were happening to you." So we talked last time about the foundation of the Christian faith and showing mercy, showing forgiveness. And now, when we're building on that foundation and we're extending it further and realizing that in our service, doing the right thing and acting with compassion, we're going to seem somewhat different sometimes to others because we're going to be demonstrating this mercy, and therefore it's going to seem odd to people. Sometimes it makes other people feel guilty when they see something good because it highlights the errors in their own life. And therefore, instead of maybe learning from what they see in others, they attack it. And unfortunately, that's been very evident in history with Christians. In particular, we see a lot of people getting hurt for their faith in being a Christian and doing the right thing. So we shouldn't be surprised. We should expect this. We shouldn't think that this shouldn't be the case, that once we decide to be a Christian, that everything is going to be good and that we're going to get everything good in our lives and God will protect us from everything. That's not what He promised. He didn't promise an easy life. He promised that He would be with us through these trials. There's a big difference. And so when we're thinking about meekness, again, that is unexpected behavior in very different ways from certain backgrounds of people's lives. People will say, well, the nice guys finish last, and so turning the other cheek is something that is a little bit surprise to them, because to get ahead, to be number one, you have to kind of stamp on people, to walk over people, do you not? You have to push people aside. You have to force your way through in ways that are maybe not right to be at the best. Is that true? Let's pause and thinking about that, but keep it at the back of your mind. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 28. Let's read that together. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 28. It says, "He chose the lowly things of this world and the despised things and the things that are not, to nullify the things that are." So he chose the things that people scoff at. He chose people that other people don't have time for, to accomplish the important and great things that he has in his will. And we can look at this by looking at an example of Moses himself. Moses, back in Numbers chapter 12 and verse 3, it says, "Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth." Now when we think about Moses, what do we think about? Do we see him as the prince of Egypt, who had been adopted into that royalty? Do we see him as the shepherd? Do we see the differences in his life? Do we see that transition and how he handled it? There's a reason he was considered meek and humble, and that's because of the way he went about in serving the Lord. I have an example. I just want to show you about one example of many, really, of what meekness could look like. And Noah has kindly offered to help demonstrate this for me. So Noah, if you don't mind coming up here. If I had been more organized, I'd have used our good friend Vimmel and her expertise in a balloon blowing up. We were discussing that this week with the helium balloons, and we know helium rises and it goes up. Since we don't have helium, and I don't really have a short volunteer, well he's kind of short, but he's not short enough for my demonstration here. I'm going to pretend this balloon is blown up, and I'm going to stick it right here on the ceiling. And Noah, can you reach that from standing on the ground? No, unfortunately not. I can reach it, fortunately, for this demonstration. But how is he going to reach that? You could say, well, he could jump, but that's not going to work for this example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my all fours here, and I'm going to allow Noah a step up onto my back so that now he can reach and take that balloon. Thank you, Noah. Very well done, thank you. So, Noah didn't have the ability, the resources, the ability to be able to reach that. But I did. And meekness is kind of having the ability to do something, but allowing yourself to help others reach that ability, when they don't have that ability to do that. So helping others achieve what they cannot achieve themselves. Noah wasn't able to achieve to reach that balloon by himself, but with the help of myself, he was by me giving him the ability to raise himself up, by me lowering myself and letting him extend himself and raise his arm on top of me, he was able to reach that. And it's not something that I needed his help with. I was able to do it. So why would I bother asking for his help? Well, it's demonstrating that even though you can do it yourself, you give others the chance to be able to do that. It's kind of like in a major soccer game or something, just for example, and you've got, let's say, a number one player in the world is in a critical game and it's tied in the game, and then all of a sudden they sub on this young buck it's his debut into the league, and it's his first time into the crowd here, and they both go up the field, both the number one in the world and this debut player, and they've gone past all the players on the field, and it's just them and the goalie left, and the ball is at the feet of the elite world-class player, and he has a very easy shot to make. But he also has this debut player beside him, and he decides, no, I'll pass it off to him and let him score. That's showing meekness. When he had the ability to do something very simply, but he passed that off to allow somebody else reach that greatness and achieve more than they could without his help. So there's just a couple of examples, and I apologize if they're not the most clear. There's been other examples been given before, which you can consider as well. But this morning, when we look at Moses, we can see how he humbled himself to help the people, God's people, achieve what they couldn't by themselves. And who else does that remind us of? Who else does Moses remind us of, who is actually far, far superior of Moses himself? Yes, I hear whispers of Jesus in the audience. And correct you are, Jesus. And what do the two of those people have in common when we consider both of them being amazing people with humility and in helping others? Well, they were both hated. They were both hated from where they were raised. Moses was taken very well care of for many years. You could say very graciously for many years, because he was adopted. He wasn't even blood of the royalty. But what happened after he made that mistake, and when he killed that Egyptian by accident? He was then an outcast, wasn't he? And he was hated by his own, or those who had raised him. And likewise, Jesus, he was raised in a humble home. But it was amazing to see that he wasn't, even though he would have had such shining qualities, he was very much disliked by those around him, not just in the community, but in his family as well. Let's just turn to a couple of scriptures here. Luke chapter 4. And verse 14 to 30. Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and the news about him spread through the whole countryside. He taught in the synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. And he stood up to read. The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him, and he began saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his lips. "Isn't this Joseph's son?" they asked. Jesus said to them, "Surely you will quote this proverb to me, 'Physician, heal yourself.' Do here in the hometown what we have heard that you did in Capernaum." "I tell you the truth," he continued, "no prophet is accepted in his hometown. I assure you that there were many widows in Israel in Elijah's time, when the sky was shut for 3.5 years, and there was a severe famine throughout the land. Yet Elijah was not sent to any of them, but to a widow in Zarephath, in the region of Sidon. And there were many of Israel with leprosy in the time of Elisha the prophet, yet one of them was cleansed, only Naaman the Syrian." All the people in the synagogue were furious when they heard this. They got up, drove him out of the town, and took him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built, in order to throw him down the cliff. But he walked right through the crowd and went on his way. So here we see humble men trying to do the right thing, trying to show the right thing. And quickly we see once again that he was quickly attacked. It could have been through jealousy. It's hard to really pinpoint exactly the emotions that led to the people wanting to be so hateful and cruel to him all of a sudden. But nevertheless, it just shows us that we're going to have difficulty in our community, in our homes, when we are doing the right thing and we are trying to serve God and have faith and demonstrate faith. So even our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our sons, our daughters, our neighbors, our friends, we're going to be attacked sometimes. We're not supposed to be surprised. We're not. It's something that could easily happen unless, by the grace and mercy of God, the Holy Spirit is able to reveal to them what He has graciously already revealed to us, and they can change their heart and they can come on board and help serve the Lord together. There's other verses that show that his brothers didn't believe in him, his family didn't believe in him. We won't turn to that just now, but it's something you can study in your own time. 1 John chapter 3, verse 13 says, "Do not be surprised, my brothers, if the world hates you." It's a short verse, but it's worth referring to because of what we're talking about here. Do not be surprised that the world hates you. They're going to throw rocks at things that shine, and who is shining? It's Jesus shining through us. It's not that we have done anything great, but He is doing great things through us if we allow Him to. So don't be surprised if you are hated for what you're trying to do. Just be ready for it, and be compassionate to those who are hating you about it, because maybe through your compassion and your patience with them, they will actually turn and choose faith themselves. So it was unexpected for the world to show mercy to the enemy, and it's unexpected by the world to not for us to not fight back in defense against those who are attacking us. It's for us to show meekness, when we have the power to really walk over them if we so choose. We don't need to. We can humble ourselves. We can let them stand on us to be able to reach what they ought to need to reach. When Paul's talking about, for me to live is Christ, but to die is gain. For me to live is Christ, but to die is gain. For me to live is Christ. So to die is definitely gain for us. For us to die today, those who are believers, it's a gain. We're going to a better place, and that's wonderful. For me to live right now is for Christ to live in us. And when we're living like Christ, we shouldn't be surprised to be receiving the hatred that he experienced himself, to receive the rejection like he did from his family, his friends, in his hometown, and just in general. So I'd just like to finish with a hymn that was appropriately already read to us this morning, which was amazing. This happened last time too, things from the remembrance coming together. And this is in the PHSS supplement, number 4, and we'll finish with this. Meekness and majesty, manhood and deity, in perfect harmony, the man who is God, Lord of eternity, dwells in humanity, kneels in humility, and washes our feet. Father's pure radiance, perfect in innocence, yet learns obedience to death on a cross, suffering to give us life, conquering through sacrifice, and as they crucify, praise, Father, forgive. Wisdom unsearchable, God the invisible, love indestructible, in frailty appears, Lord of infinity, stooping so tenderly, lifts our humanity to the heights of his throne. Oh, what a mystery, meekness and majesty, bow down and worship, for this is your God. Let's pray.
When the road is rough and steep, fix your eyes upon Jesus. He alone has power to keep. Fix your eyes upon him. Jesus is a gracious friend, one on whom you can depend. He is faithful to the end. Fix your eyes upon him. When the way seems long and hard, fix your eyes upon Jesus. He's a faithful friend and God. Fix your eyes upon him. Jesus is our glorious King, who will hide us neath his wing, and his praises we now sing. Fix your eyes upon him.